Welcome to Ideas, a time of conversation about all things board games. Community is built on conversations, and games are built on ideas.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Today, it is time for some fresh new ideas. Of course, if you're new to the channel, you will not know that every month I do some fresh new ideas. We talk to whether it be a game designer, an artist, someone just in the board gaming industry. We talk about how ideas come from here and turn into the games that we love to play. And so today we have none other than Jerry Hawthorne. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. And I will say, I believe community is built on conversation, just like games are built on ideas. And before we get into some of your ideas, what got you into the board gaming hobby? Or maybe I should back it up. What's your journey into playing board games?
Well, I come from a family where a lot of our activity as a family would be sitting around the kitchen table playing cards and playing games and trivia games and stuff like that. So my family was already predisposed to playing a lot of games and stuff. But my older brother, he was just a super smart person, and he was very much into World War II history and stuff. And he liked to play war games, and he would he played them solo, but you know how solo war games are not as fun.
Right.
So when I was really young, my older brother started teaching me how to play war games with him. And I'm talking about the hex and chit style war games and stuff, like Squad Leader and Crescendo of Doom and things like that. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those, but
not
he started like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he just started teaching me these crunchy war games when I was a kid, and I loved them, and I loved my older brother, and so it was a big bonding moment for us and stuff. And I played all those games with him, and then when I was a tween, my older brother left to join the Air Force, and then I was just I was just kind of left on my own, and I was always like looking for to replace that that bonding experience that I had with my brother, and I discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and started playing with my younger brother Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And so my fascination, sort of after my older brother went off to the military, my fascination sort of became involved in RPGs and things like that. But I also had that original love for board games, and so that's kind of like where I get my my melding of RPGs and board games. I kind of love both equally. So
did you have a favorite family game that you play with your family, or kind of your first love in board gaming was more of D&D?
Well, my first love in board game is as a hobby style board game, would probably be Starfleet Battles. Are you familiar with Starfleet Battles?
No.
It's just a hex and chit, basically a Star Trek themed war game from back in the old days.
Okay.
And it was it was super cool. You had a ship schematic for your starship, and all the starships from Star Trek were represented, and you used to use a wax marker to like mark elements on your ship, and then you would fight these battles, space battles and stuff. And I love that game. But my family, like what we really played a lot of was Canasta. So if you play Canasta, it's the old-fashioned card game from the 50s.
You have your hand in your foot.
Yeah, it's a great game, and our family used to have a huge amount of fun playing it and talking trash, and so those memories of gathering around the kitchen table and playing those kinds of games are huge to me, and probably are a big reason why I do what I do.
Yeah, I remember my parents playing Canasta a lot. I played it a little bit, but I remember kind of that trash talking, being in the other room growing up, and hearing my parents just like giving gears to whoever they're playing or whatever. And so yeah, I know Canasta. I haven't played it probably pretty close to 10 years. So I probably would need a refresher. What are you playing these days?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Star Wars Outer Rim. Have you
Okay.
played that?
I have not, no.
Okay, so
I
I'll
know
explain
it.
it real quickly. Yeah, it's just it's sort of a sandbox space game, based on the Star Wars universe,
Hmm.
and you get to play these iconic characters in the Star Wars universe, and you fly around the Outer Rim. The board is like shaped like a horse, half of a horseshoe, and you're flying around the Outer Rim trying to accomplish your personal goals.
Mm.
And competing with the other players and stuff. And it's super fun and very sandboxy, and
Hmm.
fascinated with it right now.
Nice.
And also Lands of Galzier, which is, have you heard of this one?
I have, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of Elder Rim. I just haven't played it. I'll say I only kind of got into the hobby like full force, like in 2015. Like I played growing up quite a bit and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is still almost 10 years, but the catalog of games to
Yeah,
that I haven't played is this tremendous, right?
yeah, it doesn't matter. Hopefully people are constantly joining this hobby,
Mhm.
and the fact that you consider yourself a newbie, but you joined in 2015. Come on, dude, we got to get like more people joining all the time.
Yeah,
So nothing
yeah,
wrong with that.
no, perfect. So let's talk about game design. You got into game design. How did you get into game design? Just with your love and fascination of D&D back in the day, and you just like, hey, let's try some
Sure.
story
Well,
building.
I mean, there's more to the story, I guess, in that. When we would play D&D, I was always the dungeon master, and so
Okay.
I would I would create these massive epic campaigns and stuff, and I was so into it, and I spent a
Mhm.
lot of time working on them, and I feel like I was really good at what I did. Then I too went off and joined the military, and I served in the military and stuff, and when I got out, um, I I didn't really get back into RPGs at all. I just
Mhm.
started just doing a normal life. Had a girlfriend and some friends and stuff, and we go out every Friday night. Um, and I discovered this game called Hero Quest, and so it was
Mhm.
this board game that like kind of mimicked an RPG experience, a very
Mhm.
basic one. Um, and I convinced somehow or another, I could convince my friends to play this with me. My girlfriend and all these non-gamer friends that I had, I
Mhm.
convinced them to play this game with me, and I played the. You are familiar with Hero Quest, right? So
Again, I know Hero Quest. I've seen images,
cool,
pictures, whatever. I've seen it.
cool.
Yeah.
It kind of mimics an RPG. You have one person that plays the controller that's like controlling all the monsters, and then the other four players play the heroes, and they're
Yeah.
going on these adventures. And so I took Hero Quest and I turned it into this huge, like,
Hmm.
every Friday night we would get together and play Hero Quest, and then we would go out partying and stuff, and go out to the nightclubs and stuff, and just have a great time and everything. But it became a huge part of my life, and I got all swept up in the whole idea of like turning an RPG into a board game sort of format, so that it appeals to a wide variety of people, especially people who are familiar with just regular board games but never really got into the whole RPG
Right.
experience, which is kind of a tough sell sometimes. So that's pretty much how I got into tinkering around with Hero Quest and making my own quests and making my own custom stuff for it. This is back before the internet, and so I would meet other people and stuff, and we would send quests to each other through the
Hmm.
mail, through snail mail and stuff like that we
Nice.
would make ourselves and everything. And so the hobby was, already a big part of my life back then.
Yeah.
And then I got invited uh, through a game store that was nearby
Okay.
where I lived. I got invited by some people that I met there to partake in some playtesting for
Hmm.
some major uh, board game companies at the time that really used sort of a word of mouth system for
Mhm.
getting playtesting in. And I got to work on things like the old game called Warzone. I got to work on that. Some of the Mutant Chronicle stuff, doing some playtesting there. I got involved in some choose your own adventure book authors that were needing playtesters. I got involved in the playtesting there, and I just guess I sort of made it, sort of just started doing the work, playtesting for other companies and stuff. The internet came around and started connecting everybody, and everything blew up. And and then I discovered HeroScape. Are you familiar with HeroScape, the Hasbro game that came out? 2004. So my son was about ready to be born, and I wanted to like buy a bunch of cool board games for him, even though he wasn't born yet. And I found HeroScape, and I got all smitten with that game. And there was a website that popped up that was put together by a friend of Rob Davio and Craig Van Ness, who are the main spearheads of HeroScape. And I got on that website. I was like one of the first people who joined that website, and they asked me to be a playtester on HeroScape. And so I began playtesting for Hasbro. Wow. And then eventually they started paying me, and I became like a content designer for Hasbro. And I guess I kind of made some connections through there, and that's how I got involved with Plat Hat Games and making my own games and stuff.
So, do you have? I love music, and so I'm going to try to link this together. But do you have a favorite game design of yours? And I want you to think about that for a bit. And the reason I say I love music, because every interview I hear with a musician, they're like, "This is our favorite. This is our best work." And they say that on every one, because it's a progression of, as an artist and a musician, crafting their skills. So maybe Familiar Tales is your favorite design because it's your most recent. Maybe it isn't. Do you have a favorite design of yours for any specific reason? Maybe it's because it was a season of your life that really, it was like breakthrough for game design, or just anything like that. Do you have a favorite design of yours?
I mean, I'm in love with all of my designs because I put love into them. They're hugely personal to me. I think that's pretty common among game designers. But I think the game that's probably more personal to me, I wouldn't like declare that it's my best game or whatever, but the one that's more personal to me, and the one game that I would love to continue to design within that space, is called Aftermath. And working, it's when Plat Hat Games was part of it. Was a game that I put out during that time. And it is a post-apocalyptic game where you play the part of what's called providers, which are these little rodents that are part of their rodent colony. You're the young rodents that got to go out into the world and find stuff to feed your colony and keep your colony thriving, and try to recruit new members for your colony and stuff. So it's a colony management adventure game, like Fallout, but with mice. And I just freaking love that universe that I created. I love the whole idea behind it. I was so passionate about all the story bits in that, and all the story directions that they were all going and stuff. And I designed the game so that it would be really, expandable and stuff. But the company I worked for, Plat Hat Games, we split off from Asmodee. And so there's like this unrequited love, because I was never able to like completely finish my vision on Aftermath. And I think that might be part of my, my attraction there too, is like the whole idea of like what could have what could have become of that. Yeah. And I also think it's like really, 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 really good. It's really good work on my part. So.
Fantastic. Love hearing it. So let's talk about your latest game, Familiar Tales.
Yes.
My son and I just started it over the past weekend, and we're a few I guess sessions in. Yeah, let's say that. Few sessions in, and I had this really cool moment yesterday when we played it, because it's a deck building game, and I like deck building games, and I should preface this, he's 9. and he plays Extraordinary Adventures Pirates from Forbidden Games, and he had this light bulb moment, which I think is really really cool. When I was like, yeah, and you can use your power to buy new cards, and he's like pirates, and I was like, it was just that really cool connection. It was that really
Yeah.
cool thing, kind of like you were talking about how you had that bond with your brother playing those games, and my son and myself have kind of started that with Familiar Tales. But for those who aren't familiar with Familiar Tales, what's a little synopsis on your latest craft here?
Okay, so Familiar Tales is like a family adventure game where you're playing through a big old storybook, page by page, and you play the part of these wizards familiars who are, you're burdened with this very huge task. There's this little girl; she's a displaced princess, and the wizard has put her in your care and sends you off into the world because her life is being threatened by the evil forces of the world, and so it's this whole idea of flipping a Disney story upside down, where you know how in Disney movies and stuff, especially like from the 90s, which is what is the core idea of the game, came from like this idea of these Disney movies from the 90s. You always had like a princess and she's always got like these cute little critters. Well, in this game, you play the cute little critters, and the princess is just a child, and it's all about they're basically becoming surrogate parents for this fledgling princess who has magical powers and stuff. And so that taking a Disney movie and like trying to sort of put it into a board game and have it come alive through the board game, and using board game mechanics like deck building and the branching narrative and stuff like that. That is like that's a huge goal of Familiar Tales. It's to like really put you in that adventure. And so I used an app for the first time. I designed with an app. We had a huge bullpen of wonderful voice actors and celebrities in the hobby world, doing voices for the characters and stuff. And it was a huge wonderful experience, both to design it and then to see the finished product. It's pretty awesome.
Yes, we've loved what we played so far. So typical question, often it's like, what came first, theme or mechanics? For this, did you have the whole story written out, whether it be like just up top, just mentally, or you like absolutely wrote it out and you did all the branching and then you just honed it in for the mechanics, or like how did that work?
I started writing the story when the story idea came to me. I started writing the story back in, I believe, 2016 or something like that. It was a story I was writing that I called Inky Woods, and it was about this wizard who's put in charge of this baby, and the baby, he has to put his familiars in charge of the baby while he wards off the bad guys, and he sends them into this mystical wood. And so the whole game would take place in this mysterious enchanted forest. And I wrote the beginning narrative to that story and stuff, but I didn't have like a set of mechanics that really felt compelling to me. And then later on, after Aftermath and after my company split off and was going independent, I had been working on this other little deck builder game engine that I thought would be very flexible. It would work with a lot of different stories. And then I went back in my files and I like found that old story. I was like, oh my God, this is a perfect pairing between these two, because the simple the deck building in Familiar Tales is very simple. It's basically just connecting symbols together, and stuff like that, which I love. And the idea is basically that you take your character's stats and you spread them out through this deck of cards, and so your deck sort of is just a big old combination of all your character's strengths and weaknesses. And that seemed to like work really well with the different characters, so that you could have their decks be different, but they all sort of function the same way, even though they're unique and different. And that really meshed up with my idea of having I wanted to have these wildly different characters. I mean, you have a golem, and you have a fox, and you have a frog, and you have a fairy. And the fairy was actually going to be just a candlestick, like an animated candlestick. But for writing stories and stuff like that, I needed to have a character that was easier and more malleable.
Yeah.
So I changed it to a fairy.
My kid loves my kid loves Gribbert. He was like, I want to be Gribbert. I was like, okay, you can be Gribbert. Then I get second choice. And then we snake drafted the rest of the characters because I found that I love the names and everything. Like, it's just fantastic. So how did playtesting differ for something that's so branching compared to something? I know you didn't design Quirky Circuits, but you've had your hand in Quirky Circuits. I'm just pointing at like a smaller game, where
Yeah.
game design or playtesting is kind of just in a box per se. And this is like me on the outside looking in, making these assumptions. You're playtesting something so small, but when you're playtesting something so big with that big giant narrative with branching storylines, where if you take this road, XYZ will happen, but if you take this road, XYZ over here will happen. Like, how do you playtest something like that?
Well, you do it. What I do is I isolate it into, moments, and then those moments I play out over and over and over again until I feel like they're right, and then I play a series of moments, and and make sure, and then I keep on growing that. It takes a lot of playing and then iterating. One thing I'm like really good at is iterating. I have no problems completely, changing all the values of my game and then playing again, and then changing all the values again and playing again. It's laborious, but I don't mind it at all. Really, it's just part of what I do. But I also work with the team, and we had other people working on it and playing it and stuff like that. And I had friends and other people that I know in the industry that I trust. I trust their value. I value their opinion and stuff, and sent them copies of the prototype and stuff. It's really, really hard. It's very, very difficult when you have a big narrative game. It's very difficult to get a bunch of people who are willing to invest in that narrative and play it. And when something's broken and then you fix it, it's very difficult to get them to reset and play through and push through. It's really hard because it's a big commitment. But it all worked out. And we did it during the middle of COVID too. So I don't know if that helped us or hurt us in it, but maybe because people were isolated and stuff and they were able to engage with the game, it helped. The idea of social isolation was a big part of Familiar Tales. I wanted to make sure that people who were socially isolated because of a pandemic or whatever happens in their lives, that they're socially isolated, that you'd have a game that would fill in those friendships and those bonding moments, that would fill in for all those missing people in your life. So that's what I tried to accomplish with Familiar Tales.
That's fantastic. How long would you say it would take someone to play Familiar Tales? If you would play it start to finish, how long? How many hours would someone get out of it?
I averaged in between 23 and 25 hours of gameplay. I think you can speed run it and quicker than that, but I don't really play like that.
Right.
I just played casually, and so about 23 hours to 25 hours.
Yeah, there's a ton of content, and of course you don't see it all every time you play it, right? Because there's so many branching storylines. You can play this thing a few times, and then only maybe then will you see all the content. I'm assuming.
Yeah. There's different content. There's some content in there that's randomly generated content, and so it's pulling from a big list of pre-written stuff. And so you might have a story bite, and as a player, you just see that as happening naturally as part of the game. You don't realize that the story that you just experienced was one of like 6 to 10 different stories that were written for that moment, and you
Wow.
just got one of those. So if you went back and you played it again, you might get the same one, but you might get a different one as well. So
My son's been fascinating, like always asking, like, let's put, like, he's excited to put more numbers in the app because he just sits there and he just loves hearing the story, and he's just
yeah,
captivated by the story. And like you said, you guys had a big pool of fantastic voice actor talent to pull from. And every time, like, everything we've already seen in the app has been absolutely fantastic, and it's just been immersive in this story. So kudos to you guys at Plaid Hat for putting the time and energy and effort into this product, which so far we've had a blast. We may not be doing the
yeah.
best, but that's all right.
Like I said, the game is a fail forward game. It's designed to sort of let you fail and pick you up and keep you moving forward in the story and experiencing even failures are adventurous,
Mhm. Right. So
the
as we
the sound design and stuff is all done by Donald Schultz, one of our staff members
okay.
who is just brilliant with that sort of thing. He worked on Forgotten Waters,
Mhm.
another one of our big narrative
Yep.
games, and he's got his own game coming out this year in August called Freelancers, which is all narrative as well, and it's very similar, branching stories and stuff like that, very character driven. So
Hmm. Right on. Well, as we kind of start wrapping up, what are you working on now?
I'm currently working on a space science fiction narrative game that is going to be a little sandboxy. There's going to be a lot of just flying around in space, exploring and stuff. It's very light, and it's science fiction fantasy, so it's not like hardcore sci-fi. It's just got
Mhm.
lots of more of an adventure, science fiction adventure kind of thing, where you got a ship and you're flying around, you're doing jobs and you're experiencing things and you're fighting. You're going to everything that you see in all your favorite sci-fi movies. You're going
Right.
around doing that stuff together as a group, cooperatively, and
Right.
everybody kind of has to like do their part on the ship, to keep the ship going.
Right. So where are you at in designing that? Like coming out in 2024 or further down the road?
I am
Rough.
only I'm only about 5 months into the design, so
Okay. So
but the story and a lot of the theming and the story and stuff I started writing a couple of years ago. So this is normally the way I do things. I start way in advance on writing. I do a lot of creative writing, like writing short bits and stuff, and I throw them on all into files and stuff. And then when I start actually grinding on the game, I have all these story things to pull
mhm.
from, and I'll do everything from character design to just coming up with cool and interesting ideas for locations and settings for stories and plot lines and stuff like that.
Right on. So you are well above the game design. You are into the realm of storyteller and like world builder as well.
Yeah, like I'm a storyteller, world builder, writer, and
Mhm.
I think game design is my medium that I
Yeah.
tell my stories with. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
that's the medium
Totally.
I've chosen. I don't know. Some people become filmmakers or authors or whatever.
Yeah.
I just chose game design.
And that's
That's
awesome.
what I do.
And many people are reaping the rewards of those choices that you've made, which is fantastic. So if someone wants to know more about your work, are you on social media or anything like that where they can kind of see your stuff that you do?
I mean, I dabble on Twitter a little bit,
Okay.
and but you can always just go to platheadgames.com,
Okay.
our website and stuff, and all my stuff is there. And yeah, I'm on all the normal things. I don't do a whole lot of social media,
No, that's
but
not a problem.
I do have a little Twitter handle if anybody wants to reach out to me.
Perfect.
If you follow me, I always follow back
Right on.
because I just think it's cool.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, Jerry, and just for sharing insights and kind of your journey. And I love hearing all these ins and outs because, often we play games and we just like throw something on the table and we're like, hey, let's play this game. But we don't necessarily associate those games or attach those games to people, like to individuals designing these, right? Maybe it's just the world we live. We just think of like, oh, these things are all corporate and just people are just coming up with these, but these are like personal things to you and to other game designers in the hobby. So I just I'm appreciative of what you've done in the game design world and what you'll continue to do as you move forward.
Thank you. And speaking to that point, your anecdotes about sharing these moments with your son, I just want you to know that means a lot to me, because that's exactly why I do what I do. Right. My games are designed for tandem play, where you have maybe an adult or more experienced gamer playing with a less experienced gamer, or a child, or it's about bringing people together who might have a wide variety of interests and stuff like that. So yeah, I appreciate hearing those stories and stuff, and I would love it if you just kept me informed, keep me in the loop about your experiences playing through Familiar Tales, because I would like to know what you guys think about all the different story beats and all the different things that are going to happen to you as you work your way through the campaign.
I will definitely do that. And yeah, my favorite place in my house, besides having a nice night's rest after a busy day, is the kitchen table, because games are played there and food is shared there and memories are created there. And just the central piece in our house, my kitchen table, is by far my favorite place to unwind with friends, with family, and just have that fellowship and just all those memories that are attached to it. So thank you, for being in for investing in what you've invested in, and in return, that's now my opportunity to invest in my kids and my friends, but specifically right now, my kids. So fantastic. Absolutely love it. Well, thanks again so much. As we wrap up, just a reminder, this is Ideas, and I believe community is built on conversation, just like games are built on ideas. If you want to know more about Jerry and his work, as you mentioned, Plat Hat Games. If you want to know more about Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples, we're on Facebook. Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella, because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.